Welcome to the Holistic Kid Show. My name is Zane.
My name is Abdullah.
And my name is Maud.
We're the Holistic Kids here to educate us kids from the inside out. Last episode, we talked about obesity. But did you know we may be eating more food than ever, but we aren't getting enough nutrients like vitamins and minerals, and we are getting super sick.
So good. I love this. Wow.
Wait,
Well,
how can you be eating so much but still not giving your body what it needs to stay healthy?
Seriously, we need to know the answer to that question, as more than 90% of us are deficient in at least one nutrient. So let's ask our next guest, Mr. Barton Scott. Mr. Barton Scott is a biochemist and the founder of the upgraded formulas. Barton developed a test that identifies your deficiencies and shows what your body needs using your hair DNA, blood, and so many other kinds of and so many other ways to get your DNA that indicate a short-term result. White hair is usually the best identifier of tissue mineral status and heavy metal toxicity. This important data provides metrics crucial to understanding your baseline health. Barton is passionate about helping people address the stressors of their daily life: poor sleep, hormone issues, and low energy. The toxicity of the modern world. I mean, we never had these kinds of problems as much before internet and all of this came into the world.
Yeah.
I mean, and now we have the extreme lack of nutrients in our food and soil, and the nutrient absorption issues that we all face. Thank you so much for joining us today.
that was a great way to start the show. So thanks for having me.
So, how does one go from being an engineer to being very passionate about nutrition? We would love to hear your story.
We would probably start with this idea that if you've ever lost someone close to you, I know you guys are all really close with your mom, and so was I. And my mom got very sick, and it was one of my biggest fears. Really, it was losing a parent. And my parents were a little bit older when I was born than with you guys, and they were healthy. They were great people, and when I was in my early 20s, my mom started to get sick, and I think that's really the reason. I after that, I started to have my own issues with focusing, really just to the point that I didn't feel like I could finish school almost. I got through school. I started working my first couple jobs as an engineer for companies that I didn't love the work I was doing, didn't feel like it was the work I was meant to do. But, out of college, you needed a job, if you're like most people. So I did that. And I was simultaneously working on trying to find a solution that would have helped her. I was able to help her some. And ultimately, although I was able to help her some, it wasn't enough. And so she passed, and it was a great teaching. She was a great teacher, and that was a great teaching moment for me. And it's informed everything really we do at Upgraded Formulas. And what we have now is a way to test hair to understand all these deficiencies that the world has. The world has more environmental toxicity. There's a construction zone happening over here. It might sound like faint thunder in the background. So if you hear that, that's what that is. And with all of the construction in the modern world, the manufacturing, there's a lot. There's a chemical load that's in the atmosphere, and there's a list of all the chemicals in the world. And 20 new chemicals are added every day. And we have to find a way to detoxify those from our bodies in order to remain healthy and to get healthier. So it's very important. And So this is where you have to have the science background. You can't just understand nutrition, because you have to be able to innovate. So that is really what we do. We test your hair to see what is missing, and then we determine from that what the best plan of action is with supplements that I develop to absorb and be more effective at reversing those deficiencies that people have that make them more vulnerable to make them more easily attacked by the environment and stress and the different things that life can throw at us as we
Okay.
progress.
So I mean, it's amazing how you were able to basically, or at least you tried to find. You were able to basically find a way to help heal your parent, even though obviously it always catches up. But at least you found it's so interesting how you're able to find out this new or this type of medicine that people kind of forgot about. So like I mean obviously you know people usually don't use of taking like hair and stuff and finding out what you need. So let's get to the big question. What is a mineral? I mean, obviously, no. Can you explain to us and everyone that minerals are not just rocks? I mean, obviously, you don't want to just. It's not like we're supposed to be eating rocks and leaves.
You guys are so smart. Wow. Yeah.
So what is a mineral, and what can it do for your body?
So minerals are that periodic table that you're probably learning in school.
Yes.
That periodic table really comprises everything on the planet that we know of, and we call those elements. So minerals are also elements. The larger category is elements, and from that we have minerals, we have heavy metals, which are the bad guys. The good guys would be minerals, and this is very important to understand. This is, as it relates to your health, most likely the most important thing. This conversation is the most important part of chemistry. So from now on, when you're in chemistry class, remember this conversation, and it may help you to find ability to sort of focus and find the importance of, is this really useful? Will I really need to know this and understand this? School is really about understanding concepts so that you can understand more concepts and more concepts. More concepts you understand right now makes you essentially smarter as we think of it, and gives you this ability to learn faster and faster. So the more you know, the faster you learn. And so that's really what minerals are. The most important elements to us as people.
So you're saying that basically there's more basically the periodic table can help our bodies more than just H2O and oxygen. I thought those are the big two that our body needs. I didn't know that it needed anything else on that.
Right. So from now on, you can see that periodic table is a list of ingredients that build you. So that is how that works. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because you read my mind, because I actually have a periodic table-ish chemistry test on Monday. So
Learn more about that right now. So now let's get to the big question, or the main. Why are minerals important for your body? I mean, what do you do with them? Well, how can they even? I thought it was just food, and stress, sleep, environment. But what do minerals do?
Love that. So what minerals do is they form the building blocks of all the hormones in our body. And without them, we would have no energy. Our heart would not beat. We would not breathe. We would not be able to detox from our cell. We would not be able to form enough energy to be alive in any way, shape, or form. And to the extent that we don't have enough of them, we have some, but not enough, our quality of life is not as good. So our energy levels are much lower. Our sleep ability, our ability to sleep deeply, our ability to not be anxious and fidgety, what we call ADHD, or any sort of behavioral difficulty, bipolar, any of these things are all related to the lack of nutrients that we have in our body. And the way to really think of this is a cell that makes up an organ, which is one part of your body, needs the nutrients that it needs to be able to do the processes it needs. And when it doesn't have that, you simply don't have happy cells. When you don't have enough happy cells, you have disease. When you have disease, well, it just gets worse and worse from there. The opposite is true too. So, happy cells need all the nutrients they need and require to do the work that they want to require to be able to, essentially live a happy life as a cell in your body, doing the jobs that it's meant to do. Does that make sense?
So you're saying that our cells in our bodies, they also need to eat food, but it's not like our kind of food?
Right. And really, when you think about food into the body, that food into the body really just breaks down to these nutrients. That's the whole purpose why we eat from a nutritional standpoint. It's just to get the nutrients. So we take in food and we get the nutrients, and then that gets transported throughout the body. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, we know vitamins come from foods and all these kinds of nutrients that you can get from certain kinds of foods. Where do you find minerals? And why are we so deficient in them?
We find minerals throughout our entire food supply, and we're so deficient in them because our soils, I think you mentioned at the beginning, our soils are very depleted. Our soils have about anywhere from 30 to 50% less nutrients than your grandparents had when they were your age. And that's a huge jump in a matter of 80 years or so. And that's obviously an unsustainable jump. And every health issue is linked in some way to a mineral deficiency. So yeah, those are really, really important things to understand. Great question. And I see it looks like we have another question here. What minerals are kids most lacking? Kids are lacking the minerals, and this is an interesting concept, I think, for people to really understand, is kids are lacking the minerals that their mothers are lacking. And to some extent, their fathers are lacking, mainly their mothers. And if your mom had heavy metals, which all people have some level of, she was able to, pass on a lot of good things to you, but also heavy metals. So you start life with a certain level of heavy metals based on what your mom had, just like based on, in your case, lucky, your mom's very smart, very talented, and I'm sure had some great nutrition and really was thoughtful about all these things. So I would say certainly got luckier than most in that regard. And there's always some improvement to be made. There's always another level of health to be attained. And so minerals certainly coming from food, but the soil has been a real issue. And now we're starting to nurture the soil instead of just use the soil more and more. You see, that's what biodynamic farming would be, and regenerative agriculture. That whole movement is very, very important, because the topsoil erosion throughout the world is honestly a real challenge to our species as humans.
Yeah, like you were saying in the beginning, our world is becoming basically like a chemical wasteland at this point. There have been so many chemicals dumped into the earth, dumped in the soil. People don't think about the soil. It's just soil, it's grass, it's dirt. We just step on it, right? But we don't understand how much soil actually benefits everyone. Soil really is the base of all plant life and all nutrients and all basically life on earth. Without soil, well, we're not going to get any food, we're not going to get any
No
even
plant.
because animals, they need soil, then they need the grass, they need all of these foods. It just all goes down in kind of what they call the circle of life, or the food chain.
Yeah.
But but how can we basically test for, you know, these minerals? How can we know what we're deficient of, and how to basically be not deficient of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the best way that I've found is to test your hair. And the reason why is because blood is really you on your best behavior, sort of like you on your way to the principal's office, so to speak. You're just making sure you're not doing anything wrong. You're thinking, oh, there's no way, yeah. Anyway, I mean, blood is you on your best behavior, certainly. And what I mean by that is that it's actually pulling from bone marrow, for example. It's pulling from organs to maintain the quality of blood, because it is, you've probably heard the phrase lifeblood, right? Lifeblood. And that's just the most nutrient rich area in the body. So because the body needs blood to be very, very close to ideal or perfect. Otherwise, organs shut down. So with an understanding of that, unfortunately, most people still continue to test blood because they weren't taught a different way. So that's what we're helping people understand today, with your help. So it's very important, this conversation.
Well, that's why we're trying to spread the message about minerals, because no one even know. I mean, before this, I just thought, okay, we got heavy metals, we got like some vitamins, we got some nutrients, minerals. You can throw that in a little bit, but they're not that important. But what you're saying is that they're really important. I mean, they're more important than they basically keep the cells alive, which is amazing, and we kind of really need that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we would not be alive. So
they literally give us electric charge in the body. So the body is essentially like a electrical system, and when you feel full of energy, your voltage in the body is higher. When you're very, very tired, your voltage is sort of like a dead battery almost. And we are, yeah. I'll pause there.
So where should we start to get enough minerals?
So where are they basically?
Great question. So because the soil is so depleted, you're not able to eat 30 to 50% more food without gaining too much weight. And part of the reason why we have obesity around the world, not only in the US, but really around the world as a growing epidemic, is because people are eating, but they're not satiating themselves. They're not filling up with the nutrients. So the body continues to search and search and search for the nutrients, right? With that understanding, we really have to test for, understand our deficiencies, and then supplement intelligently based on those deficiencies that are unique to you, and unique to you right now versus later on. So that's incredibly important to understand. So it's really intelligent supplementation, and intelligent meaning the supplements are very effective at absorbing and being utilized by the body, recognized by the body. And also knowing that, we're not testing your blood and it's telling you that you don't have a deficiency of something that you actually do, because, we're not testing tissue. In this case, we're talking about testing tissue with hair, which is similar to skin. It's, we think of hair as being different, but really, whether it's hair or skin, it's both tissue. And I believe that the hair is one way that we know that we're healthy. If your hair is that's part of the reason why, when you're in school, well, I'll say that part and just stop there. So, yeah, that is those are some of the ways that it's very important to your health and how to think about it.
So, I mean, you obviously, for the past thousands of years that humans have been around, we've been how did they get their minerals, and what
Yeah.
kind of minerals are the most important for you?
Okay, great question. So the main way most likely was from both spring water and from animals and plants, right? So the difference there was the world is now about 1,000 times or more. This is an old stat, 1,000 times more polluted than any other time in recorded history. 1,000x, which means so minerals play offense and defense. Think of sports, offense and defense. So they defend against heavy metals and they nourish the body with these nutrients that are necessary to ignite certain processes in the body. So without them, there's just sort of a flatness that happens. And you see a certain flatness in certain people you meet too. And it's just because they don't have as much energy. And that may come off as, oh, well, she seems kind of rude or mean or disconnected. So, yeah. Having a lot of health and vitality really helps connect you back to who you are as a person. And that difference is more and more evident because the nutrients are less and less compared to then. And the stress is higher now. Our demands are different. And the environment itself is more of a stress, as you talked about earlier. Yeah.
So let's talk about, obviously there's so many kinds of minerals. The periodic table is pretty big. If you look at it at a bigger scale, just besides the middle school, it's even bigger than what they show at middle schools because there's so many different elements now.
They added a lot new ones.
Yeah. So how are things like sodium and calcium and all of these, are these minerals that we hear about in from doctors and stuff, are these minerals, and how do we get them? So I know you said supplements, but what do those minerals do for your body, specific, like sodium or calcium?
Sure. So sodium is a mineral that helps you make energy. And it's key to make the hormones that your adrenals make. And without it, you can feel very anxious. When people have very low sodium levels, they often get labeled as bipolar. And they often get prescribed a drug by a doctor that only understands medication and doesn't really understand nutrition. Because I'm sure, as you know now, like many doctors, most through a normal traditional system, only anywhere in the world learn medication. Like 99% of their education is medication. So they're not really qualified to speak about nutrition, unfortunately. And yet people go to them with the hope that they'll solve those problems when all they really have is emergency sort of short-term fixes. So yeah, that's sodium. And then you asked about calcium. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So calcium is very important in the body. Calcium helps calm your nervous system. And yet it's very easy to get too much calcium. So most of us have too much calcium in our bodies. And because of that, we push out, our calcium levels are high, so they push our magnesium levels down. And that difference means that our health isn't really what it could be. So that's important to understand. And it impacts everything from your metabolism to your immune system to how much energy you feel like you have. If someone is overweight, that's a big factor. There's many important aspects of calcium. And when you have too much calcium, you can actually block how many nutrients are able to get into the cells and nourish your body. So great question. Yeah.
And you mentioned magnesium. I mean, I've heard that before. Like, I think people get prescribed it when they have sleep issues, or if they have like headaches or fatigue. So, what is calcium? I mean, magnesium.
What's important for magnesium? Is that
Yeah.
what you?
Like,
Yeah.
What do you do with it? How does it help?
Magnesium does many things in the body. I really feel like magnesium is the most important supplement out there. And most people, unfortunately, have been taught again and again that they need certain forms of magnesium for something. Now, when you get magnesium from food, your body only needs one type of magnesium, which is that elemental atomic, fully broken down state of magnesium. And that's what we do with all of our minerals, including magnesium, so that they're absorbed without digestion. They're absorbed easily and readily. They're understood easily and readily by the body. So because of that, you notice a calming effect. You notice that thanks to that calmness, you can now focus better, sleep better, avoid constipation, all these different things that that so many people, even at, just like 8 years old, 5 years old, 3 years old, kids can be, I'm sure you're in class with kids that are constipated all the time and they think it's normal. I know I did as a kid. And I think because of sports, you're sweating and you're moving, you're using so much magnesium that it's easy to have that issue. And there can be embarrassment around it, all sorts of things. Your friends are saying, hey, hurry up, and you're in the bathroom for ages. It's not fun. And it's really important, and it has real implications in your health later on. It can literally impact your confidence too, because magnesium, again, is required to produce energy in the body. So without enough energy, someone is not as confident as they could be, because they don't feel as resilient as they could be. They don't feel like they could rise to the occasion, so to speak. So they kind of protect themselves by, staying off of the stage, so to speak, like let someone else talk, let whatever it is, right? And maybe you've all felt that, and that's okay. That's part of being human. But now one of the things that, even certainly at a young age, it's very easy to have a magnesium deficiency. 8 out of 10 people in general are magnesium deficient, and it's not something the body stores. So you need to take it, you need to consume it through food. But again, the soil is pretty depleted, so your food is depleted. And you're not going to eat 30 or 50% more, because you fill up on the calories of the food, but the nutrients aren't there. The macros are there, the micronutrients are not. And that's largely what the body's craving. So that's a great question. And I see from Abdullah, we have a question here about Ramadan coming up. We fast sun up, sundown. We've heard that you do days of fasting. Yeah, I've done a long time. I've done 11 days straight of fasting with minerals and water. And do minerals help you fast better? Yeah, so I just recently coached people through a group of friends and entrepreneurs through 5 days of fasting out in California and in the desert. And what it's interesting how much better you feel after often. So I think it is a great practice with Ramadan. And minerals activate all these enzyme pathways in the body, which give you energy while you're not eating food. So your body's actually tapping into the stored fat. Even if you're very lean like all of you still have some amount of body fat. And that's a good thing. Your body needs that body fat to be able to build hormones, to be able to pull from it when you don't eat as much one day, things like that. So there's this fear that we all have innately that we'll starve. And most of us have enough body fat to, certainly adults, but even, I would say even kids can fast for a couple of days at least. Almost everyone can fast for 3 days and have some benefit. The reason why is because we were designed. So a lot of people get alarmed and say, oh, careful, don't say that to just everyone. Here's the reality of it that's inarguable. what we know for a fact is that if we were all in a tribe together, I would normally go out and I would kill a deer, or I would gather, plants or whatever, and we would feast for a while, and then for 3 or more days, often, there would be no food. And that was just tribal living in the wilderness all the time for millennia. And that's how we developed. So we certainly developed that way, and it is possible. Now, doesn't mean it's the absolute best thing to do all the time, but the resiliency of a human is very strong. So water, minerals, sunlight, that's a lot. And grounding as well, all very important. So, yeah. Are you guys familiar with grounding?
Yeah, we
Yes.
love grounding is very important. I mean, like the soil, and like I was saying before, because all of the nutrients in the soil, it's great for your skin as well.
Yeah. Yeah. All of it. All of it. It's really good for every aspect of health. Grounding is really important because it gives you electrons, negative electrons, that do help with inflammation, which is a big driver of dis-ease in the body, a lack of ease in the body. So cells trying to work and not having the nutrients they need, not having the electrons they need. So, yeah, very important. Great questions.
Yeah, I mean, that's very important. So, tell us more about your company and why it was so important to create it when there were so many companies out there, and
Mhm.
how can we learn about you and your work?
Thanks. Well, Upgraded Formulas is really just a love letter to how how important foundational nutrition is for people, and it's just been all the effort and study and research I've been able to put together to offer people what I wish I had myself and for my family 12 years ago, when I was struggling with all the things we talked about. And I think in health you see this somewhat often, is we don't really look at our health early in life. Like, you guys are definitely the brilliant exception, until there's something wrong, because we kind of take it for granted, unfortunately. And it seems like you're all smart enough to not do that. So I'm not saying that I ever took it for granted, but still there had to be some real challenge for it to gain my attention, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you. That was so great. So Upgraded, the site that's scrolling at the bottom, the website there is upgradedformulas.com. And this is phenomenal. This is such a great conversation. So thank you. Yeah, people can find me on Instagram. That's probably best. Ask Barton, Barton. And at Upgraded Formulas, we put out some great content 3 days a week there, and YouTube channel. The website's probably the best place to start. So.
Well, that is amazing.
So empowering.
So amazing.
Everyone, make sure to follow Mr. Scott on social media. He is so inspirational. Thank you so much, Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott, let's recap Mr. Scott's key points.
A number of minerals are essential for health, like calcium, phosphorus, potassium, sodium, chloride, magnesium, iron, zinc, iodine, sulfur, and the list just goes on and on. But with most of us having deficiencies, our bodies are not working the way it should.
That's right.
Why it's super important to focus on where your food is coming from, how to get those supplements, how to get those minerals into your body to feed your cells so you work properly.
Our bodies are extremely different than it was like a whole,
Kind of.
like a long time ago. They used to,
Our environment is a lot
yes,
different now.
because nowadays, before we would eat all these minerals and vitamins, but now we're still stuck, they're still stuck on, and everybody's like so stuck on Doritos and M&Ms and all this.
That's right.
Wow, Mr. Scott, that was amazing. We are so thankful for your wisdom and time today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Zansari.
I'm Abdullah.
And I'm Imad.
Follow my family online and social media, Holistic Mom D, and look out for my mom's with Holistic Arts, your guide to chronic inflammation and disease. The Holistic Arts for kids, parenting healthy brains and bodies in a changing world. And the amazing children's book we wrote together called Adam's Sling Adventure. That came out Gratitude is a superpower. Kids need to learn for other kids. Please download our podcast on iTunes and rate a review so other kids and families can benefit. We need to work together to create a healthier future for all of us and the planet. Join us next week for another episode of the Holistic Kid Show. Our kids are empowering kids. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone.